Can you imagine standing in your own backyard, celebrating the biggest achievement of your life, only to have it ripped away in front of everyone you love? I'm Erin, and I thought the hardest part of landing my dream job was getting through the interviews. But it turns out the real test came after, in the form of betrayal I never saw coming, and it came from someone I shared a childhood with. Stick around, because what happened that night beneath the string lights shattered more than just a celebration. It exposed something far more cruel than I ever expected, and the way I came back from it. Let's just say, sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud to be life-changing. Now let me take you to that moment when everything started to unravel. I should have known something was wrong the moment Kayla offered to make the toast. My sister rarely volunteered for anything that didn't involve a camera or a compliment, but there she was, wine glass in hand, standing under the string lights in my parents' Denver backyard, as if she'd been rehearsing her lines in the mirror for weeks. "To Erin," Kayla began, flashing that toothy pageant smile she'd perfected since she was 15. "My brilliant big sister, who just landed a job with Halcyon Data Systems in Silicon Valley. We always knew she'd make it out of Colorado. Some of us just took a more scenic route." Everyone laughed politely. My parents smiled like they understood the joke. I did too, but something in my gut pulled tight. It wasn't the words, it was the way she said them. The champagne was cold in my hand. The patio lights above us flickered gently as if even they were holding their breath. I felt a swell of pride, mixed with the exhaustion of endless interviews and too many rejection letters. Finally, this win felt like it belonged to me. That is, until my phone rang. I hesitated. It was nearly 9. Who even calls at this hour anymore? I glanced at the screen, unknown number, but something compelled me to answer. "Hello." The voice on the other end was clipped, professional but disinterested. "Miss Keller, we regret to inform you that the position with Halcyon has been filled internally. We thank you for your time." I froze. The backyard noise blurred around me. I stared straight ahead as the sounds faded into a muffled hum. What? There must be some. But the line had already gone dead. I didn't even lower my phone right away. It just stayed pressed against my ear, like if I held it long enough, the truth would change. "Erin," my mom asked, her wine halfway to her lips. I turned toward them all, my parents, my uncle and aunt, a few neighbors, Kayla, and I saw it, just for a second. The corner of Kayla's mouth twitched. Not a smile exactly, but something close, something that didn't belong in a moment like this. I'm not going to Silicon Valley," I said, hearing my own voice from far away. The job was rescinded. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through bone. Kayla stepped back, her eyes wide, too wide. My dad blinked slowly. My mom's hand found her chest like she needed to steady her breath. I looked at Kayla again, but she had already turned toward the drinks table, her back to me, fussing with the napkins like this was nothing. Like I hadn't just lost everything. And I knew. I didn't know how. I didn't know why. But I knew. She had something to do with it. That was the moment the celebration ended. But it was also the moment I started seeing everything clearly for the first time. Let me ask you, have you ever looked into the eyes of someone who's supposed to love you and seen nothing but satisfaction when you fall? If you've ever had your trust broken by the very person who should have been clapping the loudest, you're going to want to stay with me, because this is only the beginning. You'd think after a moment like that, there would be a confrontation. That someone, anyone, would pull me aside and ask what really happened. But no one did. The party fizzled out in awkward waves. Plates were quietly cleared, chairs folded, and my mother said something about how corporate decisions are unpredictable. Like that explained everything. And Kayla, she disappeared inside before dessert. I sat alone on the patio, the fairy lights still glowing like they hadn't gotten the memo that my life had just caved in. No one asked if I was okay. No one offered more than a half-hearted hug and a maybe something better is coming. The people I expected to rally around me didn't. And that silence felt louder than the rejection itself. The next few weeks blurred into each other like smudged ink across a page. I applied to more jobs, each application a little more desperate than the last. My resume, once a ticket to anywhere, now felt like a lie I was trying to sell. I checked my inbox like it owed me an apology. Nothing. No interviews, no callbacks, not even a thank you for applying. It's funny how fast people stop asking how you're doing when you don't have good news to share. At home, the shift was subtle but unmistakable. My parents stopped bringing up job prospects at dinner. My mother started complimenting Kayla more loudly, like she was trying to fill a void I'd left behind. "Kayla's been staying late at the firm again," my mom would say. "They're grooming her for something big, I just know it." She said it while looking at Kayla, but the words were meant for me. A quiet reminder that someone in this house was still worth praising. And Kayla, she acted like nothing had happened. One morning I passed her in the hallway. She smiled and said, "You'll find something, Erin. You always land on your feet." It sounded encouraging, but her eyes were gleaming with something that didn't feel like hope. I couldn't shake it. That smile the night of the party haunted me. It had been too rehearsed, too timed. And there was something off about how fast she'd turned away after I got the call. But I had no proof, only a twisting gut and the slow, unbearable unraveling of my confidence. I started keeping to myself more. I'd slip out of the house for long walks, anything to avoid the conversations that left me feeling like a ghost. My room became both sanctuary and prison. I was either sleeping too much or not at all. My appetite vanished. Some mornings I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and wonder what the point was. The worst part? I started believing them. Maybe I was too ambitious. Maybe I was making a big deal out of something routine. Maybe, just maybe, I had imagined Kayla's smile. That's the thing about quiet betrayal. It doesn't scream. It seeps in. It rearranges your memories and makes you question your instincts. And if you're not careful, it convinces you the problem is you. One afternoon, I overheard Kayla talking to my dad in the kitchen. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was just walking down the hall when I heard her say, "I'm just trying to focus on my work. Erin seems really fragile right now. I don't want to upset her." That word, fragile, hit me like a slap. It was code. Code for unstable. Code for let's not believe anything she says. I stood outside that doorway, invisible again. And I realized something that made my stomach clench. She was setting the stage. Whatever came next, she was already painting me as the unreliable one. And I let her. I didn't speak up. I didn't push back. I just retreated further into myself like silence could protect me. But it didn't. It only made me smaller. And the smaller I felt, the more she seemed to glow. Our parents hung on her every word. My dad asked her for advice about his investments. My mom called her our rock. I was the ghost in the hallway, the shadow in family photos, the one who couldn't even hold onto a job long enough to make them proud. Have you ever felt that kind of erasure? Like you're still breathing, but no one looks at you long enough to notice. That's where I was. And I didn't know it then, but something had to break before I could even think about rebuilding. And when it finally did, it happened in the most unexpected place. 2 states away, over coffee and a line of code. But I'll get to that. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not my parents. Not Kayla. Not even my best friend from college who texted me twice last month and stopped when I didn't reply. I figured if silence was how they treated me, I'd return the favor. So one gray morning in February, I packed the essentials into my old Corolla, laptop, 3 interview outfits, and the ceramic mug I always took with me on hard days. It had a chip on the rim and read, "One step at a time." I left a sticky note on my dresser that said, "Going to find my heir." No one ever brought it up. I chose Albuquerque because I didn't know anyone there. That was the point. It was far enough from Denver to feel like escape, but close enough that if I failed spectacularly, I could at least drive home in shame. Not that anyone would notice. I found a tiny sublet over a bakery and took a job waitressing at a sleepy cafe near the university. The kind of place where students linger over cappuccinos and elderly regulars flirt with the barista over muffins. I told them I'd wait tables while looking for something more permanent. They nodded politely. I could tell they'd heard that before. At first, the change of scenery helped. The light in Albuquerque was gentler, and the sunsets rolled out like a warm apology. But the quiet grew teeth fast. Nights were the worst. I'd sit in the shower with the water turned too hot, letting the steam hide my sobs. I didn't have anyone to call. Not really. I'd scroll through my contacts and feel ridiculous. Who wants to hear from the girl who used to be going places but now smells like espresso grounds and onions? I kept applying for jobs, though. Any job remotely connected to data analysis, machine learning, system logic. I tweaked my resume a dozen times. Nothing. The rejection letters were friendlier than the silence in Denver, but they still said the same thing. We've moved forward with another candidate. Eventually, I stopped telling the cafe crew that I was looking for something better. I was just another uniform now. The funny thing is, no one at the cafe knew anything about who I'd been. I was just Erin, the new girl who was oddly good at remembering orders and never took her lunch breaks. No one asked about my background, and I never volunteered. I liked it that way, but sometimes I'd catch myself calculating tips in my head using predictive logic patterns, same way I used to debug massive algorithms. I'd joke with customers in binary. Once, a grad student noticed me solving a logic puzzle on a napkin during a slow hour and asked if I was a math major. No, I said without thinking. I used to be something else. That night, I walked back to my apartment and stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I didn't recognize the woman looking back. My face looked thinner, my eyes older. My spark, whatever that thing was that used to make people lean in, gone. And yet I couldn't bring myself to cry. The tears had started to feel like luxury, indulgent, like I hadn't earned them. The worst part wasn't the job loss or even the betrayal. It was the emptiness, like my life had become white noise. Like I'd slipped into the background and no one even noticed the missing color. But the thing about going numb is it's not sustainable. Something always pokes through. And sometimes it's the smallest, most unexpected moment that starts everything back up again. In my case, it was a man, a laptop, and a problem no one else could solve. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That day started just like every other, until it didn't. It was a Thursday morning. The kind where the sky hangs low and the cafe smells more like burnt bagels than fresh hope. I was restocking the sugar packets when I noticed him, early 30s, glasses smudged, wearing a hoodie that probably hadn't seen a washing machine in a week. He sat in the corner booth, eyes locked on his laptop like the screen had insulted his mother. He'd been there all week, always ordering the same thing, black coffee, no cream, no sugar. Never smiled, never looked up. Just typed, frowned, deleted. The tension in his jaw said he wasn't a poet, he was building something or trying to. That morning, though, something was different. He flagged me down, his hand twitching like he wasn't used to asking for help. Sorry, he said, voice hoarse from not speaking. Do you know anyone who's good with logic sequencing in Python? I blinked. Like data validation or AI logic. His eyes widened. Yeah, that. I'm stuck on a behavior model that keeps defaulting to an old loop even when the input evolves. It should adapt, but it's freezing. The words spilled out of him like a desperate confession. I shouldn't have cared. I should have smiled, offered to bring the manager, and walked away. Instead, I leaned over his laptop. There it was, nested logic choking itself in redundancy. The algorithm wasn't wrong. It was just blind to the new data source he'd added outside the loop. I traced the lines, saw the error like it was in neon, and muttered, "You need to break the loop after the second condition. Otherwise, it's just chasing its own tail." He stared at me. That's it. I typed in 2 lines, refined one, ran it, the interface blinked, the output streamed. Holy, that fixed it. I gave a half shrug, old habits. He sat back slowly like he was seeing me for the first time. What's your name? Aaron, I said, suddenly aware of the grease stain on my apron. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a business card. Jack Whitmore, Titan Metrics, I'm CTO. I almost dropped the coffee pot. I'm not hiring for this project, he said quickly, but we've got an internship pipeline. Full-time offers come fast for people who perform. If you ever want out of here, he gestured vaguely at the cafe, call me. He tapped the card against the table twice, then slid it to me. I stared at it for hours, didn't even put it in my bag, just kept it tucked in my pocket like a secret. Like a maybe. That night, I laid the card on the tiny kitchen table in my apartment. It glowed under the bare light bulb like some kind of portal. Titan Metrics. The name alone sent adrenaline through me. They were known for predictive analytics, early AI models, the kind of work I used to dream about doing in grad school. I hadn't touched real code in 6 months, but something about how fast I spotted that bug. It reminded me who I used to be, before Kayla's smile, before the silence. I didn't call him that night, but I didn't throw the card away either. That had to count for something, because maybe, just maybe, life was knocking again. And this time it didn't sound like opportunity. It sounded like redemption. I didn't call Jack right away. I carried his card like it was fragile, like the ink might smudge if I wanted it too badly. But one night, after a shift that ended with a coffee spill down my shirt and a customer snapping at me because we were out of oat milk, I sat at my tiny kitchen table and stared at the card again. I dialed the number. My hands were shaking. He remembered me immediately. Aaron, the cafe savior, he said. I was hoping you'd decall. The process after that moved faster than I expected. A quick tech interview on Zoom turned into an invitation to test on one of Titan's sandbox datasets. I passed. Then came an offer not for an internship but a junior data architect position. I left the cafe 2 weeks later. The manager barely looked up when I turned in my apron. I guess I'd already disappeared in his eyes. Titan was everything the cafe wasn't. Bright, fast, demanding. It smelled like coffee beans and ambition. No one asked if I knew what I was doing. They handed me a stack of real-world puzzles and expected me to solve them. And I did. It was like muscle memory. Within months, I was promoted. Then again, my first title read specialist. By the end of year 1, I was managing a small team of analysts. Jack pulled me aside after a quarterly review and said, "Some people interview well. You rewrote a dev protocol without blinking. That's talent." I smiled, thanked him. But something inside me stayed quiet, because the voice I really wanted to hear praise me wasn't his. Every few weeks, I'd pick up my phone and hover over my mom's number. Once I even drafted a message. "Hey, just wanted you to know I got promoted again. Hope you and Dad are doing well." I never sent it. I did call once. It was Kayla who answered. "Oh," she said, as if I'd butt-dialed her by accident. "Hey." "Hi," I said, unsure what I even wanted. "I'm actually kind of in the middle of something," she replied. "Can I call you back?" She didn't. She never did. A few days later, I saw a post from her on social media. A candid shot of her with our parents at some gala. The caption read, "Grateful for the people who always believed in me." My stomach clenched. My name wasn't in the photo, but my absence was. Jack offered to take the team out to celebrate our latest data milestone. We drank craft beer on a rooftop while he toasted everyone's brilliance. My team clinked glasses and laughed. I smiled, nodded, raised my glass. But inside, there was a hollow echo. Because no matter how many performance reviews I crushed, no matter how many dashboards I rebuilt from the ground up, there was a part of me that still stood in that backyard in Denver, phone in hand, party lights above me, watching my sister turn away. I didn't want a trophy or a LinkedIn badge. I just wanted someone back home to say, "We see you, we're proud." Instead, they were too busy applauding Kayla again. "Did you hear?" my mom said during one rare call, her voice breathy with excitement. "Kayla might be nominated for executive leadership. They say she's a natural." I nodded through the phone. "That's great, Mom." "Oh, honey," she added quickly, "we know you're doing your thing too, of course." My thing, as if it were some quaint hobby I was fiddling with between waitressing shifts. I hung up and stared out the window. Titan had just expanded, and Jack had mentioned a leadership role coming up, one that involved setting up a new division. I wasn't even supposed to know yet, but I did. I knew where that division was going, Denver. The universe has a sense of humor. I didn't laugh, I just nodded. "Let's go home." The offer came with a leather folder and a handshake. "Denver's ready," Jack said, handing me the papers. "We need someone who can build it from scratch, someone who doesn't flinch." I didn't flinch. I nodded, slid the folder into my bag, and said, "When do I start?" He grinned. "That's why I picked you." That night, I walked the streets of Albuquerque in a daze. It was surreal. The city had dulled me, cradled me, healed me. I'd come here to forget, to vanish quietly into waitressing shifts and hand-me-down sunsets. But now I was going back, to the place where it all cracked open. The backyard with the string lights. The family dinners where I was a shadow. The sister who wore sabotage like a second skin. And I wasn't just visiting, I was returning with a purpose. To lead, to build, to own something. I didn't tell anyone in Denver I was coming. My parents hadn't called in months. Kayla hadn't texted since that curt phone call. It was fine. I wanted it this way. Let them hear my name through headlines. Let them find out through company whispers. Let them feel that creeping uncertainty of not knowing, just like I did when I stood on that patio watching Kayla's smirk bloom. I packed in a single night. My Albuquerque apartment had never been meant to last. I left behind the chipped mug and took only what mattered, my laptop, my notes, and the card Jack gave me that first day. I tucked it in my suitcase like a talisman. The drive back to Denver was long and strangely silent. I didn't play music, I just thought. About how I had changed, about how I hadn't. The city skyline appeared around a bend in the highway, soft in the morning haze. My chest tightened. I rolled down the window and let the cold air slap me awake. This was real now. Titan's Denver space was still a shell, bare walls, fresh paint, scaffolding in corners. But to me, it was a cathedral. I walked through the echoing rooms and saw it all. Teams, innovation, strategy. My hands itched to get started. Over lunch, Jack pulled out his phone. "We'll do a soft launch first, internal naming only for now." He grinned. But don't worry, once people hear who's heading the division, it'll get loud. I smiled, but not for the reasons he thought. That night, I checked our old family group chat. It was still active, still nauseating. Recipes, forwarded memes, birthday plans, then I saw it. Kayla's message, big news coming soon. Our firm's launching a division head competition, winner gets full leadership. I'm in, wish me luck. Mom replied with a string of heart emojis. Dad added, you've got this, superstar. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I laughed. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't loud. It was soft, like a door cracking open after a long winter. She didn't know. None of them did. And I wasn't going to tell them, not yet. Let the game begin. 2 days after Kayla's announcement in the family chat, I walked into Titan's Denver office with a coffee in one hand and floor plans in the other. The space was finally breathing. Desks were arriving. Team leads were being flown in from Chicago and Austin. My vision was becoming real. The energy in the office pulsed with potential. And beneath it, I carried a secret like a live wire. I had already been named head of the Denver division. Quietly, internally. The real announcement would come soon. The irony wasn't lost on me. Kayla was out there prepping PowerPoints and perfecting her smile, pitching her executive readiness to her firm's board. I imagined her standing in front of a slide that read vision, leadership, impact while I sat quietly in a building I already controlled, finalizing hiring decisions and infrastructure strategy. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so poetic. At night, I still checked the family chat. Not to engage, just to observe. Kayla updated her status. Pitch went amazing. Feeling like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. My mother responded, you make us so proud. My father added, our girl always aiming high. I closed the app. I didn't need their applause anymore. But I couldn't lie, there was a burn. A familiar ache that still flared up when I read those words. I wanted to believe I was above it, that I didn't crave validation anymore. But part of me still did. I wasn't back in Denver just to build a division. I was here to reclaim something intangible. Dignity. Visibility. Proof that I wasn't the fragile one, the runner-up sister, the ghost in the hallway. A week later, the official announcement date was confirmed. Titan's board was preparing a public rollout, complete with internal communications, press briefs, and a small company-wide event. Jack approached me with the agenda in hand. You ready for the reveal? He asked, his grin a little smug. I'm ready, I said. But inside, I was holding my breath, because Kayla still didn't know. And my parents, who once told me I needed time away to reflect, hadn't asked a single question about my life in over a year. Let them find out with everyone else. Let them scroll through their LinkedIn feed and see my face beneath a headline they thought would belong to Kayla. Let the silence be my statement. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the balcony of my new apartment, a high rise with a view of downtown, paid for with my signing bonus. I watched the city lights flicker like signals only I could understand. In the stillness, I whispered to the air, she doesn't know yet. Not in the smug way, not even in revenge, just fact. Kayla didn't know she'd already lost, and I wasn't going to gloat. I was just going to lead and let the truth arrive on its own. The Titan announcement went live on a Wednesday. At exactly 10:00 a.m., a sleek email hit every inbox in the company, announcing the launch of Titan Denver, led by division head Aaron Keller. My face was beneath the header, professional and composed. The copy read like a coronation. My accomplishments, my vision, my role in shaping Titan's strategic frontier. It was everything I'd worked for, and none of it came with an apology. The same morning, Titan's Denver office hosted a small internal event. There were bagels, coffee, and a projector slide that flashed welcome to Denver, leadership forward. I stood off to the side as people clapped politely. Jack introduced me, voice full of pride. And then, as if conjured by some cosmic director with a flair for timing, Kayla walked in. She wasn't invited. She came with her department head and 2 HR reps from her firm. They were scheduled to tour the building, as Titan was one of the competitors in the cross-partner collaboration event Kayla's company had been using to scout external leadership partners. She didn't see me at first. She was laughing, probably making some bold pitch about her synergy skills. But the moment her eyes landed on the slide, the moment my name blinked across the screen, her smile froze like a candle dropped in ice water. Her eyes snapped to me. We locked gazes. In that fraction of a second, her entire face shifted. Shock first, then disbelief, Then something I hadn't seen in her in years, fear. She approached me slowly like I was something radioactive. "Erin," she said, her voice was thin. I didn't realize you were in charge," I offered, my tone cool. She blinked. "This is your division," I nodded once. "It has been for weeks." Her mouth opened like she had something else to say, but then her boss turned, spotted the awkward pause, and introduced himself to me. I shook hands, answered questions. Kayla stood beside me like a statue while the room moved on. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Later that day, I saw her storm out of a strategy meeting Titan hosted with external firms. Her heels clicked too hard against the floor, her face flushed with humiliation. She didn't look back. No one followed her. That night, I checked the family chat. It was oddly quiet, no congratulatory messages, no emojis, no passive-aggressive remarks, just silence. I knew what that meant. They'd seen the announcement. They just didn't know how to respond, or maybe they did and chose not to, but I wasn't surprised. They hadn't clapped for me when I needed it most. They weren't going to start now. And honestly, that hurt less than I expected, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their applause. I had my own, and it was louder than anything they could have given me. In the weeks after the announcement, Titan Denver transformed from blueprints to something alive. We hired fast. We implemented faster. By the time the internal audits rolled out, my team was already 2 quarters ahead in projections. I moved like clockwork, strategic, precise, but not loud. I didn't need to be. Kayla still worked in the same building complex. Her firm had leased space 2 floors down. We crossed paths in the lobby once. She pretended to be looking at her phone. I let her have that moment of invisibility. It felt like a kindness. But the shift between us had already happened, and it echoed in every hallway. Titan's performance reviews were transparent, objective. Every new hire underwent the same assessments, from technical aptitude to team integration. No favors, no filters. Kayla applied for a partner liaison project lead, hoping to loop Titan into a campaign through her firm. Her proposal crossed my desk. It was fine, polished, predictable, filled with hollow buzzwords and vague deliverables. I flagged it as insufficient, not personally, not with venom, just factually. Titan passed on her pitch. 2 days later, Kayla sent a follow-up requesting feedback as a courtesy between local division heads. I gave it to her. Direct, professional, no condescension. No compliments either. She didn't reply, but she knew. She'd spent years spinning illusions of effort, of worth, of dominance. And now I wasn't playing her game. I was writing my own. Within my team, I instituted a performance protocol that relied on peer calibration and blind scoring. The system didn't care about charm. It cared about consistency, execution, and how well you lifted the people around you. It worked. Titan Denver's metrics climbed. Our turnover dropped. My inbox flooded with resumes from talent eager to join. And still, Kayla bristled. She started showing up to meetings tight-lipped and overprepared. She wore sharp blazers and forced laughter in group discussions. She tried to outpace us by mimicking our language, but mimicry only works on the surface. And Titan was built deeper than that. I never confronted her, not directly. There was no need. The new structure spoke louder than any speech. We weren't in the same league anymore, and everyone could feel it. Sometimes power doesn't shout. Sometimes it just stays still and lets everything else rearrange around it. That was my silence now, unapologetic, unbending, and exactly where I belonged. It didn't happen all at once. Power rarely breaks that way. It starts slow, tiny shifts like hairline fractures in glass. And Kayla, she was starting to splinter. I saw it in the way she hesitated during meetings, in how her emails doubled in length, layered with nervous qualifiers, in the stiff politeness of her nods whenever we crossed paths. Titan had fully implemented my performance protocols now. Every department was under review. Every employee, regardless of past affiliations or presumed charm, was subject to the same process, including Kayla. Her numbers were average. Her team feedback was mixed. And though I kept my distance from direct evaluations, I monitored them like any department head should. The data didn't lie. Under pressure, Kayla stumbled. She missed deadlines, delegated sloppily, and when confronted with honest feedback from her own staff, anonymized and filtered through our system, she became defensive. I watched from my office window one evening as she sat alone in the courtyard, shoulders curled forward like she was shrinking into herself. Her phone buzzed beside her, ignored. Her hands were trembling. The facade was beginning to crumble. My team restructuring began quietly, reassignments based on collaboration scores and leadership fit. I didn't target her. That would have been petty. I just did what any division head with integrity would do. I built the strongest, cleanest system I could. And the system left no room for coasting. It required accountability, transparency, consistency, things Kayla had never been asked to provide before. The tension grew. Not dramatic, not explosive, just constant, like pressure behind a dam waiting for one crack too many. In team meetings, she sat straighter, smiled less, contributed more but not with clarity, with panic. Her confidence wasn't unraveling, it was unraveled. One of her junior team members stopped me in the elevator. "I don't mean to overstep," she said, eyes darting to the door, "but thank you for implementing the new structure. The first time I've felt like my work actually matters." I nodded. "You're not overstepping, keep doing good work." The doors closed behind her, and I exhaled, because that was the first time I realized this wasn't just about me or Kayla anymore. This was about a culture, a new one that couldn't be undone with charm or cruelty, one where I didn't have to shout to be heard, because the structure itself had finally learned to listen, and all Kayla could do now was try to keep up. Or break. It was a Thursday afternoon when Kayla finally cracked. She knocked on my office door without warning, 3 clipped taps, her silhouette stiff in the frosted glass. "Come in," I said, already knowing. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and didn't sit. Her blazer hung slightly off-center, and her lip gloss had been smudged and reapplied in haste. Her eyes, once sharp and calculated, looked exhausted. "I need to talk to you," she said. I gestured to the chair. She hesitated. Then slowly she lowered herself into it, spine stiff as if the act of sitting felt like submission. "I didn't know," she began. "At least not at first. I didn't think it would go that far." I stayed silent. She stared at the floor. "The Halcyon job, I knew they were interviewing you. I also knew the HR lead. We went to grad school together. She trusted me." My heart beat steady, but my fingertips went cold. "I didn't want to sabotage you," she said quickly, as if trying to outrun the word. "But when I heard they were torn between you and another candidate, I might have said some things." I said nothing. "I told her you had a habit of overcommitting, that you were brilliant but unstable, that your emotions sometimes got in the way of your decisions." She winced at her own words. "I didn't think they'd pull the offer, just lean toward the safer choice." She looked up at me, eyes rimmed with pink. "But they pulled it, and when you got that call at the party and I saw your face." "You smiled," I said softly. She flinched. I know I did, and I hate that." I leaned back in my chair. "Why, Kayla?" She shook her head, miserable. "Because you were always ahead, always perfect, and everyone noticed. No matter how hard I tried, I was always second, except that day. That day I was first." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't mean for you to disappear. I didn't think you'd leave." I let the silence grow thick between us, then I spoke. "I didn't leave, Kayla. I rebuilt. There's a difference." She nodded, lips trembling. "I know, I see that now." She pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across my desk. "What's this?" "Everything," she said. "Emails, notes, screenshots. I've documented what I did. If you need to take it up with HR, it's all there." I opened it. Clean, detailed, dated. No defensiveness, just facts. She was handing me the weapon that could ruin her. "Why now?" I asked. "Because I can't do this anymore," she said, voice breaking. "I'm exhausted. I'm humiliated. And I see what you've built here. I see how people respect you. And I finally understand that you didn't take anything from me. You just earned what I was too afraid to work for." I studied her, really studied her, for the first time in years. Kayla, not as the sister who outshone me in our parents' eyes, but as a woman who had lived so long in comparison's shadow that she mistook sabotage for self-preservation. And now she was here, not begging, not blaming, just surrendering. I closed the folder, took a breath. "You have 2 choices," I said quietly. "Transparency or termination." She blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means you tell HR yourself. You explain what you did. You give them this folder and take responsibility on record, or I do it for you." Her eyes flooded, but she nodded. "I'll do it myself." She stood, hesitated, then whispered, "I'm sorry." I gave a single nod. "The past can't be undone, Kayla, but the future that you still get to earn." She left without another word. When the door closed, I looked at the folder again. My sister had tried to erase me once, and now she had handed me the evidence. But I didn't need to destroy her to win. I already had. Not because I got the job, but because I'd finally stopped needing her or anyone to clap. And that was the loudest silence of all. Have you ever faced a betrayal that changed everything and came out stronger because of it? Drop your story in the comments below. And if mine hit something real in you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. You can walk away from the wreckage and still build something brilliant.